copy of the medical records for Layla Daniel and Millie Place. It is self-authenticating with a certified business record certification.
For a minute.
And sir, if you need to refer at any point to the records, just let me know. Okay. All right. So we'll start with Layla Daniel. Do you recall the first time that you treated Layla Daniel?
I don't actually recall that, other than referring to the medical record.
Did you have medical records associated with that first visit?
Yes.
And what was the date of that first visit?
I believe it was around May 2015.
Do you remember the exact date?
May 18th.
Do you recall how old Layla was at that point?
I think she was around 20 months old.
Do you recall who she was brought in by?
Ms. Brown.
And that would be Loretta Brown?
Loretta Brown, yes.
And what was the purpose of that particular visit?
She was just placed in Ms. Brown's care, and she was behind on immunizations and needed a well baby checkup, so
Okay.
that's what she came in for.
And so what did you do as part of the checkup? What does that checkup consist of?
Height, weight, vital signs, history and physical examination, any laboratory things that we need to do, and immunizations, and then address any other issues that there may be.
Okay. And when you did the physical examination, did you do a musculoskeletal examination?
Yes.
And what does that consist of?
Examination, palpation, visual inspection of the entire musculoskeletal system.
Okay. And when you say visual inspection, what is that? What do you mean by that?
Well, you look at the extremities, the back, and look for any abnormalities, deformities, check the curvature of the spine. Then you palpate for any tenderness or abnormalities.
And when you say palpate, what does that mean?
You actually physically touch and feel.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time I'd also move into evidence states 123 through 137. These are the X-rays from November 17th of 2015 regarding Layla Daniel. They have an associated certification of business records, so they are self-authenticating.
For a minute.
So when you stated that you palpated, did you palpate her arm?
Yes.
Did you palpate more specifically her left arm?
Yes.
I want to show you what's been previously admitted as states 129. Yeah, the light. Okay. I'll zoom in a little bit. What are we looking at here in states 129?
That looks like a X-ray of the left arm, including the humerus, the radius, and the ulna.
Okay. I'm going to give you a laser pointer. Well, the laser's not working right now, so we might have to go old school with the tried and true method.
Okay.
Does it first say on here what date this X-ray was taken?
November 17th, 2015.
So that would have been, my math's not great, but roughly 5 months after the visit that we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. And what are we looking at in this particular X-ray that's of significance to you?
Well, there's an area here of abnormality. You can see the interruption in the bone, which would indicate a fracture.
Okay. And what kind of fracture would that be?
It looks like just a complete, fracture, which is not displaced. That means it's still in line.
Okay.
The bone edges here are still in line. There's also a faint evidence around the bone of what we call callus formation, which indicates healing.
Okay.
It means it's an older fracture.
Now, when you say older fracture, And do you believe that this would have been present when you examined Layla on May 18th of 2015?
No, I don't think that if that fracture had been present when I examined her, the callus formation at this point would be almost completely the same as the bone, and the defect here would be fused. The bones would be fused.
Okay. And when you palpated Layla's arm, meaning you felt it, did you feel any abnormalities in her arm?
Not at that time.
I'll just for the language, what's states 130? What are we looking at here?
This is just another view of the same arm, apparently the same defect or fracture there, and that's the same date.
So you felt you felt absolutely no evidence of this fracture when you examined her. Did you? What if any evidence did you feel regarding any fracture in her left arm?
I did not feel any evidence of fracture at that time.
We can bring the lights back up. Thank you. I also want to talk about your physical exam. Did you note any bruising on her body?
Not that I recall.
Did you note any signs of physical abuse whatsoever?
No.
And if you had, would you have noted them in your records?
Yes.
Now, were there any specific complaints brought to your attention on that particular date?
There was a complaint that Layla would get angry or mad, have a temper tantrum, turn blue.
Okay. When you say turn blue, how would she end up turning blue?
She would hold her breath.
Is being a pediatrician for as many years as you had, is that unusual?
No, it's fairly common.
Is there any physiological, anything associated with that from what you could tell from your examination?
No.
Now, was there another time that Layla came into your office?
She came back in a few weeks later.
Do you recall the exact date?
I don't.
If I were to show you the records, would that help you?
Yes.
I'm showing you states 138.
Okay, she came back in on June 29th, 2015.
And what was the purpose of that visit?
It was just to receive some catch-up immunizations.
Did she see you on that date?
No.
Did she see any physician on that date?
No.
Who would she have seen when she came in?
The nurse.
And now, as far as her weight, was her weight relatively normal at this point?
Yes, it was in the normal range for her age.
And had she, between the first visit and the second visit, was there any change in her weight?
On the first visit in May, she was 23 pounds, 10 ounces, and 24 pounds on June. So she had gained 6 ounces, about half a pound.
Is that appear normal?
Yes.
Was there any, according to the records, was there any complaint of any kind of bruising or anything of that nature?
I don't know.
So there's nothing that's at least listed in that report, correct?
Right, correct.
Did you ever see Layla Daniel after that day?
No.
Did you ever see her on August 12th of 2015?
No.
Now, did you also treat Millie Place? I believe you said you had.
Yes.
All right. And what do you recall the date that you first treated Millie Place?
I don't recall.
If you want to look at the records, you can do that.
Okay, she came in November 19th, 2015.
Now, do you remember this visit?
I do.
So you have an independent recollection of this visit?
Yes.
Do you recall who she was brought in by?
She was Miss Lambert.
And that would be Patricia Lambert?
Yes.
And what was the purpose of that visit?
She came in with complaints of bruising on her hips and buttocks and on her left arm.
What did you do as far as the examination or treatment of her?
Saying that take a history, physical examination, and an assessment and a plan.
I want to show you what's been previously admitted as states 78. It's behind you. Does this look like one of the things that you recalled during your visit with Millie Place?
Yes.
And I also want to show you what's been previously admitted as States Exhibit 80. Does this also accurately reflect what you observed on Millie Place on November 19th of 2015?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me, you said you got a history. What was the history that you got?
That she had been taken out, placed into foster care. She was removed removed from that home after the death of her sister, and that when she returned there was bruising noted on her right buttocks and right upper arm, and so she was brought in for that evaluation.
Did Millie say anything about how she obtained those injuries?
She said she fell.
Okay. Did you ask any more questions of Millie?
I did not.
And why did you not do that?
I didn't. That's not my area of expertise to investigate. There were obvious, in my opinion, signs of physical abuse, and so I wanted the experts to be able to question Millie, and anything that I say to her or ask her, I didn't want that to cloud what they may find out.
Okay. So what we're looking at in States 80, did that give you concern as the pediatrician seeing her?
Yes.
And why is that?
It's just not consistent with a fall, in my opinion.
Okay. Now, I do also want to show you States Exhibit 81. And this was also, did you also observe this on Millie 2 days after these were taken?
Yes.
Okay. And what are we looking at here?
These are just erythematous papules around the buttocks there.
Okay. And does that look like it's from abuse, or is that natural?
That, and just looking at a picture, and I didn't write this on my note, but it looks like impetigo, which could be just a normal occurrence. Okay. It does not look like abuse.
Okay. So there's nothing about that jumps out at you as being abuse, correct?
No.
What about the arm? Did you have concerns as your treating physician about the injury to her arm that we're seeing in States Exhibit 78?
Yeah, that's a pretty significant bruise.
Okay. And was that concerning for you for potential child abuse?
Yeah, it wasn't consistent with the fall, and so, yeah.
All right. Did you also see Millie after that particular day?
Millie came in on January 25th, 2016 for a 4-year checkup.
Okay. And were there any complaints on that day?
That she had a rash on her upper leg and buttocks.
Was that the same kind of rash that we saw in those previous pictures, or something different?
It was something different.
What did you do during that visit?
History and physical examination, vital signs. We tested her hearing and vision, did a urinalysis, checked a drop of blood for anemia, routine stuff on a 4-year checkup, and then she received vaccinations.
Did you note any bruising in this particular checkup?
No,
Any signs of physical abuse?
no.
Did you ever see Millie after that day?
She came in one more time, March the 15th, 2016, complained of sore throat, fever, and ear pain. She was diagnosed with strep throat, and she was treated.
Did you ever see Millie after that date?
Did not.
Do your records indicate how the visits were paid for that we've talked about today?
My records don't indicate that.
Nothing further at this time.
All right, thank you. Cross. We need to make sure in the last.
No. Dr. Leard, good morning. My name is Corinne Mull. I have a number of questions for you. I want to concentrate on June 29th, 2015. You did not see Layla that day, did you?
No.
And on June 29th, 2015, your nurse saw Layla.
Yes.
Now, with regards to protocol in your office, when your nurse would see something that would give her concern for abuse or for any other unusual thing, would she ever relate that to you?
Yes.
And do you review her notes?
Yes.
Now, on June 29th, 2015, who brought her in? Who brought Layla in?
That's not reflected in my notes, and I don't recall.
So it's whoever would have had her that time?
Yes.
Okay. And did anybody give a history or complaint of bruising?
No.
Did anybody give a complaint of lacerations or cuts?
No.
The sole purpose for which she was there was for vaccinations, correct?
Correct.
That's all I have this time.
Just one question for you, Dr. Leard. Is it possible that someone could have brought something to the nurse's attention and it wasn't properly documented?
Yes.
Nothing further.
Is this something that you normally endorse in your office not to properly document?
Would say no.
Okay. So if something were to have occurred, such as bruising, is that something that you rely on your nurse to observe?
I rely on my nurse to assess appropriate, bruising. If anything would be out of the ordinary, I feel confident that they would address that with me.
And do you feel confident in this case that she addressed with you what she had to address with you?
Yes.
Do you feel confident in this case that this child came in for vaccinations only?
Yes.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Nothing further.
All right, thank you, Dr. You can sit down. Any objection to this witness being excused?
Not from statement.
Your Honor, I would ask that you remain on call. He's under my subpoena as well.
All right, Doctor, what that means is that you're excused for now, but you may be recalled, and so just be sure that you're in a place where we can reach you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Right up here.
Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give should be the truth and the whole truth to help you God?
I do.
Please lower your hand and state and spell your first and last name.
Ebony Taylor, Ebony Taylor.
And Miss Ebony Taylor, how are you employed?
Pardon, I didn't hear you.
How are you employed?
The Department of Family and Children's Services.
Ma'am, can you put the microphone up to your mouth?
The Department of Family and Children's Services.
And how long have you been employed with our short Defects?
14.9, 11 months, years.
Years. And what is the position that you hold with Defects?
Field Program Specialist.
Okay. And what does that entail?
I review policy, train staff, staffings, high-profile cases, cases that are related to foster care.
And did you hold that position back in 2015?
No, I was the county director for Henry County Defects.
And as the county director for Henry County Defects, what were your job duties?
I did the budget, the county's budget, stakeholders, worked with juvenile court judges, looked over CPS, child protective services, and foster care cases. I did everything pretty much related to the leadership aspect.
Did you have any direct contact with any of the kids that were involved in Defects or with Defects?
Not direct contact, no.
What about any of the foster parents? Did you have any direct contact with the foster parents?
Through Foster Parent Association, I would go sometimes quarterly to their Foster Parent Association meetings to hear their concerns. If it was caseworker concerns, invoices concerns, as far as them getting paid timely, that's pretty much my contact if they had complaints or concerns.
Did you carry a caseload at all?
No, ma'am.
And in regards to the case involving Millie Place and Layla Daniel, did you become involved at some point in time during the process or during the time period that they were dealing with Defects?
Yes.
Okay. And how did you become involved?
Well, one time was, I'm not sure the time frame, she was placed, Millie was placed in a home where Miss Lambert, she's a foster parent, and we had received an investigation in regards to her having a black eye.
Do you recall when that was that investigation occurred?
Not a time specific, no.
We're looking at some Defects records. Refresh your recollection as to that time period.
Yes.
If I may have heard.
You bet.
It would have been February 29th, 2016.
And were you aware of the death of Layla Daniel in 2015?
Yes.
So this complaint involving Miss Lambert would have been after the death of Layla Daniel?
Yes.
Okay. And what is your recollection as to that particular investigation involving Miss Lambert in 2016?
That the child had sustained like a black eye. An investigation came in. The caseworker, Ms. Housley, went out and responded. We staffed it. That's where I became involved because it was a special investigation because it involved a foster child. They have to staff it with the county director prior to closure.
And what happens during the staffing of a case?
They review the investigation. We discuss any safety concerns, any validity, any facts to support the allegations, and their actions in the investigation, which they reached out to the pediatrician to get clarity from a medical professional if it was a black eye, and it was not determined that it was a black eye, and she was cleared medically, and we unsubstantiated the case.
What does it mean to unsubstantiate a case for Defects?
That we don't find clear and sufficient supporting evidence to say that maltreatment occurred.
What happened once that case was staffed? What was the ultimate result of that staffing?
We unsubstantiated. The foster parent, Ms. Lambert, requested the child be removed from the home.
And what was your understanding? Why was the child removed from the home?
The foster parent stated that she didn't want to get involved with all the media. She just didn't want to get involved with all the chaos that was surrounding the media and the child at that time. She wanted to just be a foster parent and not get involved in anything like that.
Okay, all right. Any other time that you, prior to that incident, that you were involved in regards to the placement of Millie and Layla prior in 2015?
Repeat your question.
Let me ask you, did you ever receive any information in regards to placement involving Millie Place and Layla Daniel during the time period of 2015?
No, ma'am.
I'm going to show you what's being marked as State's Exhibit 139. Do you recognize State's 139?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is it?
It's an email from Mary Battle to myself, June 18th, 2015.
Okay. Do you recognize and remember that email conversation?
I do.
State would ask the State's Exhibit 139 be admitted into evidence. And what was the conversation in regards to that email that you received from Mary Evans Battle?
She basically wanted us to place the children in the home of the Rosenbaums and was asking what's taking so long.
And what was your response to her as to the time frame?
Then we have 30 days by policy to assess a family to determine for the home assessment and to allow my staff, Tamara Warner, and the contractor to do their job.
After you received that email, what did you do, if anything, in regards to receiving that email?
I just asked Tamara and them, did they contract the home eval out? And she said yes, it's still in process. And I said, okay.
Let me ask you, did you know either Jennifer or Joseph Rosenbaum prior to receiving that email?
No, ma'am.
Have you ever had any contact with either one of the defendants?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And you spoke about there being a process for a home evaluation. Can you tell us what a home evaluation is?
A home evaluation is where the department, either we complete the home eval ourselves or we contract it out. And it goes through, we observe the resource home, the dwellings, to make sure there's sufficient bedding, sleeping quarters for the children. If they have sufficient income, they pass a fingerprint live scan, drug screen. We get references, 3 references. We do CPS check, 911 check for residents on 911. We basically assess their parental capacity to be a caregiver for the foster children.
And once that home assessment is done, are part of your duties as the director at that time to review all home evaluations?
Yes.
Okay. At any point, did you review the home evaluation involving the placement of Millie Place and Layla Daniel with the Rosenbaums?
No.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 141. Do you recognize that?
I've seen it after the fact.
And what
Yes.
is it?
It's a home evaluation for Millie and Layla on the Rosenbaums, Jennifer and Joseph.
A state would ask that State's Exhibit 140 be entered into evidence.
Is it been in the number again, please?
140.
Oh,
I may have misspoken, but it's 140. It's 140. I misspoke.
okay.
And you indicated, did you ever receive that home evaluation during the time period that it was in the process for approval?
No.
Was that home evaluation signed by someone?
It was signed, yes, by someone.
Who was it signed by?
Deshae Rice Clancy?
And was Ms. Clancy authorized to sign that home evaluation?
No.
So the home evaluation that was signed in this case, did it go through the proper process?
No.
Nothing further.
Cross.
Ms. Taylor, good morning. My name is Corinne Mull. I've got a couple of questions for you. With regards to this black eye on 22916, isn't it true that the complaint came from the child's biological mother?
I don't recall who the complaint came from, I'm sorry.
Okay. With regards to the actual investigation, they took the child to the hospital, correct? In the early hours of the morning.
I'm not sure on that, I'm sorry. I just know that we followed up with the pediatrician.
Isn't it true that Ms. Lambert and Mr. Lambert asked that she be removed the next day?
I don't know if it's the next day, but they did ask that she be removed,
And
yes.
one of the reasons was the media, but another one of the reasons was because Mr. Lambert did not want to lose his job over a false or misleading accusation.
I don't recall him saying that
You
to
don't
me.
recall any?
I don't know that for sure.
And was there anything, you've reviewed this home evaluation, have you not, at any point?
I have not.
As during the course of these 4 years that we have been dealing with the Rosenbaum case, you have never looked at the home visit?
I looked at, it's called the home evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
I reviewed it after the fact, but it's been 4 years ago. I don't recall
And
like the details of it, I'm sorry.
Okay, was there any indication that you do recall that the Rosenbaums would not have been approved or should not have been approved in this home study?
There was concerns. They did not, my staff, Tamara Warner, did not screen Miss Rosenbaum's maiden name. And had she been screened her maiden name, her foster care history would have come up, and I would not have approved her on that alone.
Let's go back and try and answer the question. With regards to this home study,
It's not completed correctly.
okay, what is not completed correctly about it?
Ms. Rosenbaum's maiden name was not screened. So what they submitted was her married name, and they did not do a background on her maiden name.
But with regards to the home visit, the house itself, was there anything wrong with the house?
Not to my knowledge, no, but it's more than a house now that we do approval for.
But your people did approve it, didn't they?
It's not approved because I didn't approve it.
You didn't approve it, but somebody approved it.
Who did not have the authority to approve?
What steps do you take to make sure that that doesn't happen?
That's an HR matter with defects. That goes over my head, and it's already been dealt with.
Thank you.
Nothing further.
All right, thank you, Randy, please step up.
Thank you.
The objection is witness being excused.
None from the state line.
None from the defense.
All right, and you are free to go. You're released from the city.
State calls Tamara Warner-Smith.
Tamara Warner-Smith. Okay.
Please raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You can put your hand down. Please state your true and correct name for the record.
Tamara Anita Smith.
And Ms. Smith, make sure I note that. Ms. Smith, what is your current employment?
I work with State Farm
Okay. And prior to working at State Farm, where did you work?
with the Department of Family and Children Services.
When you worked with the Department of Family and Children Services, did you have a different last name?
I did.
Okay. You've since gotten married, correct?
Absolutely.
All right. What years were you with the Department of Children and Family Services?
I originally started in 2007. I worked through 2010. I left to do some other things, and I came back in, I want to say 2013 or 2014.
When you came back in 2013 or 14, what county were you working in?
I was working in Henry County.
And what was your role?
I started as a case manager for foster care, and I was promoted to foster care supervisor.
In 2015, were you a foster care supervisor?
Yes.
And can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what that meant to be a foster care supervisor?
If you will give me a moment, I'm out of breath. I came up the steps.
That's okay. Take
I'm
your
sorry.
time.
The elevator wasn't moving.
Do you need some water or something?
Please. Ooh. Summer heat and pregnancy. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Take your time.
So, being a supervisor, I was managing a unit. I can't remember how many at this time, but we oversee quite a few things. Just the day-to-day functioning, helping with the case managers, just a lot of managerial things. Just it's a number of things that we do.
Okay. Were you a supervisor for a person by the name of Samantha White?
Yes, I was.
And what was Samantha White's role at Defects?
She was a foster care case manager.
And was she the foster care case manager for Layla Daniel and Millie Place's case?
Yes, she was.
What are the responsibilities for a case manager at Defects, foster care case manager?
Following, it's a lot of things too, but when we have custody of a child, of course, we try to meet the needs of every child that we have. We make sure they're safe in their placements, making contact with them, working towards unification with their families. And a lot of things fall under that umbrella.
Okay.
So,
Do they ever attend court hearings?
yes, we did have hearings.
Do they go to the home where the foster children are placed?
Yes.
How often do they go to the home?
At the time, it was required once a month.
And when they go to the home, about how long, usually, are those home visits?
I would say a minimum an hour. Should be.
Okay. When they go and do a home visit, what type of things should the case manager be doing at that home visit?
You want to first and foremost assess safety. So you want to make sure that the child is also doing well in the placement. You speak with the foster parent to see if there are any issues that have arrived. You look at their room. You look at where they're sleeping. Make sure they have enough clothes. Depending on age, you have to look at other things. You ask about school, if they're school age. It's just the number of things that you have to assess while you're there.
Okay. What about if a child is nonverbal, meaning they haven't started to talk, or at least talk very well? Are there any additional steps that need to be taken?
Absolutely. When a child is nonverbal, you want to see them undressed. Even if they're in a pamper, you want to make sure you change that pamper so that you can see that child fully unclothed every month.
And if a child's nonverbal, should the case manager be doing that at every visit?
Every home visit.
Do you remember from your time there about how large the average caseload was?
Henry County wasn't high that I can remember, but I don't remember the exact caseload at that time. It wasn't as high as when I worked in previous counties. So,
outside of that single monthly visit, could there be other visits that the case manager has with the foster parents?
yes, sometimes you would make visits say for instance they're involved in other activities, or if they have something at school, if they're school age, you would see them there as well as in the home.
Now, Ms. White, what was her level of experience when you supervised her?
She was a very new case manager.
Did you have any complaints or concerns about her when you supervised her?
Yes.
And what were those?
It was follow-up, making sure that things were done. When we would have a meeting and I would say, oh, this might need to be done, we would come back to the next meeting, and in some cases and things still were not done.
Can you give us an example of what you mean?
Sometimes children need services in the home. We have to make referrals out for them to get those services, for the people to come in and assess the kids.
What kind of services are we talking about here, for those of us who aren't as familiar with defects?
Okay. It just depends on the child again, but a lot of it is in-home therapy, play therapy for younger kids that are nonverbal. It helps us to find out other things, if other things are going on that we might not be aware of.
And so one of your concerns was she didn't always have the best follow-up, correct?
Correct.
Now, when you supervised her, did you ever go out on home visits with her?
Initially, when I started, Samantha started around the same time when I started in Henry, before I was promoted. So she actually went out with me as a case manager a couple of times on some visits. But when she was actually a worker, I can't recall going on a visit with her.
Did you ever go on a home visit with her to visit Layla or Millie?
No, I did not.
Now, speaking of Layla and Millie, do you recall the first time that you ever heard about these two children?
I don't, other than, they came into care.
Okay. Is it, as a supervisor, is it part of your job to know every single kid that's in the foster care system?
Yes and no.
Okay, explain that.
We kind of live through our case managers. So they kind of paint the story for us as to what's happening with the child, what's going on with them and their families. I might not always have direct contact with them as a supervisor.
Okay. Were you familiar with the reason why the children were in defects care?
At this time, I don't recall. I'm sorry, but
That's okay.
I don't remember.
I want to talk a little bit about the placement. Do you recall how the children ended up being placed with the Rosenbaums?
Yes, Samantha listed them as one of the people that were a fictive kin.
And what is a fictive kin? Tell us a little bit more about that.
So a fictive kin is not a blood relative. They're not foster parents, but they're someone that has a connection with the family. And you would typically get permission from the family to say, hey, this is someone that we know, and we would like for our kids to be placed here.
What about the screening process to place a child with fictive kin? Is it the same as a foster placement?
Foster homes are done differently. We had a person in the office that actually handled all of the foster homes. When we were doing relative placements, we would get what we call a relative assessment.
Okay. So what about the training or the classes that the fictive kin are supposed to go through? Are those the same, or were they the same at that time?
There are no class requirements for relatives.
What about fictive?
There are no class requirements.
Now you said that the Miss Rosenbaum was treated as a fictive kin, and why was that to your recollection?
Samantha told me that this was someone her mom was placed in foster care with when she was in care, and that they were friends.
Okay. Now, do you recall a situation, are you familiar with a person by the name of Patricia Lambert?
Yes, she was a foster parent.
And was there ever a situation where she voiced any concerns about the children?
Yes, there was.
And tell us about that.
Ms. Lambert came to the office, and I think Samantha was out on leave, and she stated that, and Ms. Lambert has a very heavy accent, but she stated that something was not right.
Okay.
And that's what she kept saying, but
I'll move on.
All right.
When Miss Lambert came into the office, did she present you with anything?
there were some photos that were sent. They were also emailed, and it looked like scratches.
Okay. Now, at that time, did you have any concerns about the photos that she showed?
Well, what I did was, and I spoke with Miss Ebony Taylor, who was the administrator at the time. She actually saw the photos as well. It was a bunch of people that saw them. They asked for us to have Samantha to go out and follow up to see if there were any other concerns and to speak with Ms. Lambert in further detail.
Okay. And based upon all that, at that point, did you have any concerns about the photos that were shown?
No.
Now, regarding the placement, was there anything else that you received that, let's say, was out of the ordinary regarding how the children got placed with the Rosenbaums?
No.
Did you ever receive anything from any of the judges in this particular case?
Oh yeah. It was an email, but it was an email asking, when we were going to place and if we were not going to place, so to speak.
Okay.
And asking for a reason why we weren't.
Was that out of the ordinary?
That was my first time, in, having an email from a judge in reference to a placement.
Now, did you know Ms. Rosenbaum prior to the placement?
No, I did not.
Did you know Joseph Rosenbaum prior to the placement?
No, I did not.
Did you ever see Ms. Rosenbaum at any point through your work at Defects?
No. Well, in passing, I'm sorry, at juvenile court.
Okay. Did you ever have any interactions with her at that point?
No.
All right. What about after Layla's death?
She came into the office, I want to say it was the morning after.
And do you recall anything about her demeanor that you remember?
It was somewhat of a blank stare when I saw her. That's all I can remember.
Okay. Did you have, from that point on, though, did you have any further role in the investigation?
No.
Now, let's talk a little bit about some protocol. If a child that's in foster care receives a broken bone, are there any sort of procedures that the case manager is supposed to follow?
Yes.
And what are those procedures?
To first notify your supervisor. You also to make a referral to CPS to follow up and do further investigation.
And when you say CPS, what is that?
Okay, so foster care and there's Child Protective Services investigation. There's also the foster care spectrum. The CPS investigative team, they do more follow-up, more involved investigations for things that you might suspect to be abuse, or we make sure that it's not abuse.
Okay. And so if there's is that standard protocol for any time that there's any significant injury?
Yes.
And would a broken bone fall within that spectrum?
Most definitely.
Are you aware of any sort of report being made by Ms. White regarding any broken bones on Layla Daniel?
No.
Did she ever contact you directly about any broken bones from Layla Daniel?
No.
Ms. Smith, you're no longer with Defects, correct?
That's correct.
And you were actually terminated as a result of this case, is that correct?
That's correct.
Nothing further at this time.
And cross.
Ms. Warner, good morning. My name is Corinne Mull. I just have a number of questions for you. You've been sued in this case, is that correct?
There is a civil case.
Okay, there is a civil case, and were you sued in that case? Are you a defendant in that case?
Yes, I was named in that case.
And when you say you were named, were you sued in your capacity? Are you a defendant in that case?
Yes.
Ms. Taylor, I want to talk to you about the incident in Loretta Brown's household Ms. Lambert's household with regards to marks and bruises. You saw the photographs.
Yes.
Ebony Taylor, the director, saw the photographs.
She was the administrator at the time,
She
but
was the
she saw them as
administrator.
well.
Other people in the office saw them.
Yes.
Ms. Macedon saw them.
Yes.
And did you not make a determination that those marks did not rise to the level of abuse?
The photos that I saw
Yes.
did not.
Did not what?
Did not rise to the level of what we would consider abuse at that time.
Okay. What did you see that did not rise to that level?
I can't remember where they were, but they looked like scratches.
Like scratches?
Mm-hmm.
And what did you think about scratches?
Well, what Samantha told me was that they were playing at the playground and they fell. They were scratches.
So is it not true, Ms. Warner, that you also considered that these were healing and or healed marks?
I did not.
You did not look at that?
I did not determine if they were healing or if they were new.
Did you make any notation with regards to the fact that they were healing or healed?
I don't recall at this time.
Now, you wrote a case note in April of 2015 with regards to efforts made to place the children with relatives, correct?
I don't recall, but
Does that sound, would you have done that?
typically my notes would include efforts to place with relatives.
Were there anybody willing to take these children at that time?
Not that I'm aware of.
And this fictive kin, the standards are different than from foster parents, correct?
That's correct.
And with fictive kin, home studies do not go through Miss Odikpo, correct?
That's correct.
And Miss Odikpo would have nothing to do with fictive kin, correct?
That's correct.
Now, you wrote that Millie in September of 2015 was receiving counseling services through Pathways to address any past trauma experienced as well as to being adjusted in foster care. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And that was in November of 2015, correct?
I'm sorry, did you say September or November?
September of 2015.
I would have to look at the notes to be sure when I wrote it, but
Let me show you, see if this refreshes your recollection.
okay.
So in September of 2015, the child would have had to have been taken to a counselor, correct?
I'm not sure if that was in home or if they were being taken somewhere.
Okay, so counseling was either done in home or the child would have been taken to the counselor.
Correct.
And so in September 2015, the child was in counseling at least for a period of time.
Correct.
Now, you also wrote a note that in August of 2015 that the children were doing well and adjusting to living with the Rosenbaums, didn't you?
Yes, and that is from what was reported to me by Samantha White.
Now, you have testified here earlier that with regards to Samantha White, you were not pleased with her follow-up. What did you do about it?
There was a memo given, a memo of concern.
Did you do anything other than that?
Other than work with her to try to assist, that was about it, other than just writing it down saying, hey, these are some concerns that we have.
But you didn't go out with her to see Millie and Layla?
No.
You didn't go out with her to see any of her clients, did you?
No, I did not.
And in fact, you were fired because she was fired, isn't that correct?
I don't
As
know
a
why I was
supervisor.
terminated. I just know it
Sure.
was a result of this case.
Now, while the children were with the Lamberts, there were concerns about Millie getting very upset when she did not get her way, correct?
That is what was reported by Samantha.
And that's what you wrote under
Yes,
your
during
name.
the staffing with Samantha.
And Layla had begun to hit and pull hair, correct?
That is what was noted.
And it's fair to say, Ms. Warner, that you feel if it weren't for Ms. White, you would probably still have your job, correct?
No, I don't feel that way.
You don't feel that way. And you're not concerned at all about being a defendant in a lawsuit, in a civil lawsuit?
No.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Redirect.
Nothing further, Judge.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. You can step down. Any objection to this being excused?
Not mistaken.
Ms. Bowman? You're excused. State will call this next witness.
State called Mary Evans Battle.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give should be the truth and the whole truth, so help you God?
I do.
You can have a seat, and can you please say and spell your first and last name?
First name is Mary, M-A-R-Y. Last name Evans -Battle, E-V-A-N-S -B-A-T-T-L-E.
And Ms. Evans Battle, how are you employed?
I am an assistant district attorney here in Henry County
And how long have you held that position?
since 1998.
And are there various units in the district attorney's office?
Yes, there are.
And what unit are you assigned to?
I am currently assigned as the accountability court assistant district attorney for the Superior Court, and I also am assigned to the CHINS, which is part of Juvenile Court.
In 2015, what division or unit were you assigned to with the district attorney's office?
The Juvenile Division.
And what were your duties as an assistant district attorney in the Juvenile Division?
I supervised employees there. We had another assistant as well as an investigator and two other staff members. And I was responsible for the day in and day out as to their duties.
And as far as being a supervisor in the juvenile court and supervising employees, what types of cases specifically did y'all deal with in juvenile court?
We dealt with anyone under the age of 17 who had committed a delinquent offense, as well as those under the age of 18 who had committed unruly or ungovernable offenses.
When you say a delinquent offense, what does that mean?
In the adult system, it would be a criminal offense. They violated some area of the law.
And the unruly?
It would be mostly, if they're under the age of 18, there are certain offenses that are only committed by juveniles, such as being unruly or disrespectful to their parents or truant from school or things of that nature.
And would those involve having to go to court hearings to deal with either delinquency or unruliness?
Yes.
Okay. And the courtrooms that handle those cases, are they handling any other cases dealing with children?
They handle the dependency cases.
And what are dependency cases?
Those are cases in which the child has been found to be deprived or dependent because the parents have not been able to care for the child.
And who is normally present for those dependency hearings?
There is a special assistant attorney general. There are, defects workers. There are, if there's a cross case between the delinquents, then our office would be in those types of hearings as well. There's the defense attorneys, guardian ad litems that are involved.
Would the children involved in those dependency cases sometimes be present?
Yes.
And what about the parents?
Yes.
And would your delinquency hearings and these dependency hearings, could they be going on around the same time?
Yes.
Would there be times, how did that normally occur if they're going on at the same time?
The schedule would be that one judge is hearing the dependency cases while the other judge is hearing the delinquent cases. And then at a certain time, then they switch to the opposite. The other judge would hear, the dependency, and the other judge would hear the delinquent cases.
So is it possible if you are in the courtroom that you could be present during a dependency case, although it doesn't involve the DA's office?
Yes.
And at those dependency cases, what type of, evidence is being put up?
On the dependency cases?
Yes, ma'am.
There is usually, it depends on what phase of the hearing process that they're in. If it's, for instance, if it's just the 72-hour hearing, the Sagres, the Special Assistant Attorney General, may be presenting evidence as to why the department is asking for custody of the children, what the deprivation is. Other times it could be, a full hearing where the parent has not, it could be a stipulation where the parent has said, yes, I can't care for the child right now. It's okay for Defects to have them, or there's some stipulation that's going on. It could be a full trial where the parents are denying that they did anything wrong and making the department prove that it was necessary to remove the kids from their home.
Sometimes with those hearings, if it's a full trial, involve medical testimony.
Yes.
In what instances would there be medical testimony that's being heard during those hearings?
If there were some injury to the child, if there were some indication that the child was ill, if there were any indication that the parents had some illness that would not allow them to care for the child. The other, medical kind of testimony might be if the parents were using drugs or alcohol. Those types of evidence would be introduced as well.
Okay. To your knowledge, were you ever present or present in court during any hearings involving Millie Place and Layla Daniel?
No.
Okay. And as part of your duties as a supervisor in the juvenile unit, did you have occasions to have interns work for you?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recognize the defendants in the courtroom, Jennifer Rosenbaum and Joseph Rosenbaum?
Yes.
And how do you recognize, let's start with Miss Rosenbaum.
Ms. Rosenbaum was an intern in our office for a period of time.
Do you recall when that internship was?
I want to say that it was during the summer months, I would say from May until August.
And of what year was that?
In 2015.
And how did you come to meet the defendant, Jennifer Rosenbaum, and for her to be an intern in your office?
I met her at a function that one of the attorneys gives a get-together, and I met her during that event. I was introduced by Judge Powell, I believe, she was actually an intern in her office. And she was going to be looking for an internship with us or with the DA's office. And so we agreed that she would be a good candidate to be in our office. And when she finished the intern with Judge Brown and was ready for our office, then she should contact our contact person.
And did that occur?
Yes.
Okay. And is there an interview process that you go through in order to be an intern in your office?
Yes, and normally we would have them to complete an application. We'd talk with them about the internship. We check their references. It's the usual process. And to be honest with Jennifer, I can't remember if we went through the whole formal side of it. Mm-hmm. I'm sure she filled out an application. I'm sure she submitted a resume. I know that I did speak with Judge Powell about how her internship had gone with her. And I'm sure she was interviewed with Ms. King, who was our victim advocate that kind of did most of the screening of the interns.
Would it be fair to say some of the things that would normally happen during the application process didn't occur in the case of... If I could clarify,
Okay.
did she go through the normal process of the application procedure?
I would say not, because we forgot about her, to be honest, that she was going to be coming or making an application. We usually try not to get 2 legal interns in there at the same time, at least in our section, because it is small and we don't necessarily have enough work for them. So we had already given our internship to someone else. When she asked about coming on, I think everybody decided that we felt that we needed to go ahead and try and do 2 legal interns, because the fact we had promised her that we would hire her when she made the application.
Okay. And what the internship program with your office, what does that entail? Like, what are the interns doing?
They were doing, they would do research. They were reading files, learning about the juvenile process, how it works, how it aligns with other courts. They also, if they're in the 3rd year, under the 3rd Year Practice Act, we get them sworn in so that they can participate in trials as well. They prepare motions and file them, and generally, act as if they were attorney in the office. We also did like for them to go to the other courts to get an idea from actually watching the courts how our court differs than from some of the other ones.
And was Jennifer, has she been sworn in under the 3rd Year Practice Act?
If I recall, yes, she was.
And how would you describe her as an intern?
I thought she was energetic. I thought she was eager to learn. I thought she knew the law, that she'd worked hard. I thought she was a good intern. She asked questions. She had different ideas. She was motivated to look at things and to make suggestions, and I thought she was a good intern.
And did she have an opportunity to I guess, participate in hearings and trials?
Yes.
And did she have an opportunity to do court observations?
Yes.
How would you describe your relationship with the defendant, Jennifer Rosenbaum?
I thought we had a good relationship. I honestly had hoped that we would. I, at the time, was pretty politically engaged still, and so was she. So we shared some common interests in our community, and I like that about Jennifer. So, I was hoping that we would be working towards not a friendship. I don't tend to would maybe not include her in my friend circle, but I would be as a colleague, as someone to mentor and things of that nature.
And were you able to continue that relationship?
No, in the sense that once she left the office, I think I only met with her one time after that. And then I had some things I was dealing with. I was with my family. I was out of town, and so we didn't continue a relationship.
Did she finish out the internship as planned?
I want to say she may have stayed a little bit longer, but she didn't complete it in the normal way we would, because she didn't have an exit interview or any of those things. I believe she left in maybe August, the end of August, I want to say, because I think I met with her like the first week in September, is how I recall it.
Do you recall during the time that she was interning, did you ever have any conversation in regards to her fostering children?
Yes.
Tell me about that conversation.
Well, she had indicated that one of the people that she grew up with and or knew from foster care when she was in foster care, that that person had children that were going through the juvenile court process, the deprivation process, and that person had asked her to foster the children, and that the Department of Family and Children Services were working to get that done.
And did you continue to discuss that process with her at all?
From time to time, as she mentioned it or things happened, we talked about the process that she was visiting with the children, as she started to visit with the children, and that I believe they started overnight visits at some point. We talked about the process when, that's pretty much how we were talking about the process. As they were moving along, we talked about they had to get a home evaluation completed by the department. And that's usually, I believe, done before they have overnight visits. But I think Jennifer may have had an overnight before that happened.
At some point, did you get involved in that process in any way?
Well, I know that they have been going. My understanding, they have been going through the process for a while. And I did write an email to as the attorney, the director, in reference to whether or not they were on track for doing the home evaluation, because it has to take place in a certain period of time.
Okay. And I'm going to show you what's been already marked as State's Exhibit 139, issued to evidence. Is that the email that you were speaking of?
Yes, it is.
And what prompted you to send that email?
Jennifer shared some frustration over the length of time that the department was taking in getting her approved. It was my understanding at that time that she was already having overnight visits with the children. And I was on the board for the Department of Family and Children Services also at the time. And we had some discussion about moving kids to more permanent placements. And it was my understanding that she was actually fostering to adopt. So in all of that, with this going on and her frustration, I only asked, about how long they were taking, asking them to, make whatever decision they're going to make, but just move. Just asking if they were moving forward.
Okay. And you say your understanding was that they were fostering to adopt.
Yes.
In your, in experience, is there usually a reunification plan in place when there's a foster to adopt scenario? So you would still have that?
Yes, you can still have that.
And who indicated to you that this was a foster to adopt plan?
Jennifer did.
After you sent that email, did you ever learn about the girls finally being placed with the Rosenbaums?
Yes.
And did you ever meet the girls?
Yes.
Okay. On one occasion or more?
On more.
Okay. What was the first time that you met with the girls?
I believe the first time I met them, they came to the office. One of the foster parents brought them to Jennifer at the office.
And did you get a chance to observe the girls?
I did.
Okay. Did you observe any injuries or anything that was concerning when you saw them?
No.
And you indicated it was more than one time. When's the next time that you saw the girls?
I want to say I saw them, that there was a second time at the office. But I think there was a time that Jennifer actually had to go and pick them up and brought them back to the office. But I can't remember whether or not they were, in the car, or if they were outside the car. But they probably came into the office, but I just can't really remember. But those were the only 2 times I saw them together at the office.
And did you ever meet the defendant, Joseph Rosenbaum?
Yes.
When did you meet him?
He came to get them from the office.
Once the girls were placed with the defendants, did you ever have any conversation with Jennifer about how things were going?
Just probably general conversation. Maybe I don't recall anything specific. I know that I talked with her about just to care for them. I had some type of, and I don't know what point this was, but there was something I had gotten that she put out on the ground if you're away from home for the child to lay them down and change their diaper. We talked about having something in handy like that, and but more specific, I couldn't tell you.
Okay. And you indicated that you saw the girls 2 times in the office. Did you ever see them outside of the office?
I saw them in the back of the car once when Jennifer dropped my daughter off at my home. And I saw them at McDonald's after she stopped working for our office. We had lunch, and I saw them there. Was it McDonald's? Chick-fil-A? I can't even remember the restaurant, but we met for lunch, and they were with her at that time.
Do you recall what month it was?
I want to say it was the first part of September.
And when you saw the girls at that time, did you observe any injuries to them at all?
Millie had, the older one, had a bruise or something right around her eye. But I don't recall if Layla had any injuries.
Did you ask or inquire about that bruise on Millie's eye?
Yes.
And what did you learn about how that occurred?
She indicated that she forgot and didn't have the gate across the top of the stairway, and that she had fallen down the stairs.
Did she indicate to you whether or not she had to seek any medical treatment as a result of that fall down the stairs by Millie?
No.
Was there another occasion, you said an occasion where you saw them in the car when she was dropping your daughter off?
Yes.
Was that before or after this incident in September?
Before.
The time when she was dropping your daughter off, tell me about that and how your daughter came to be with Jennifer Rosenbaum.
My daughter, we were having some issue because she was pre-diabetic, so we're talking about what she's eating and things like that. She seemed to like Jennifer and as well as the other intern. So Jennifer made her a deal that if she did what she was supposed to, was eating correctly, trying to exercise and do some of those things, that she would take her to the movies. So it ended up that Jennifer was able to take her to the movies.
How old is your daughter?
She's 21 now.
What's her name?
Alexis.
And tell me a little bit about Alexis.
She is, she's, can be very humorous. She's really a sweet child. She is 21. She probably looks a lot younger. She is mildly mentally impaired. And is a disability, of course, and she has to live with that. So she probably, most people think she's about 12 once they, start talking with her, but she, is older.
And you said that there was an occasion where she went to the movies with Jennifer. Were there other times that she would be with Jennifer or communicate with Jennifer?
I know that she, my daughter, well, she has a social, part of her disability is the aspect of not being able to pick up on social cues or who's a friend, who's not a friend, those types of things. So she loves children a lot. So she asked about going to Jennifer's, besides the movie, she asked about going to Jennifer, having a birthday party for one of the girls. I'm not sure which one it was, and if she could go and help with the party. And I told her that she could. I actually took her to drop her off at Jennifer's home.
Besides personally hanging out with her, did they communicate, to your knowledge, in any other way?
Yes, there was some text messaging, and when I found out, I told her to stop texting her, but they were texting, because that was a bit much to me. It was a little bit inappropriate.
Any other communication that you were aware of between your daughter and the defendant, Jennifer Rosenbaum? Let me ask you this. Do you know whether or not they had any social media connections?
I just learned they did.
And what was that?
Instagram.
All right, no further questions at this time. Thank you.
Hi, Ms. Battle. My name is Corinne Mull. I just have some questions for you. If you can't hear me, if you please let me know if I'm going too slow or too
And
fast.
I am having, my ears are having a problem hearing, so if you would speak up, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Definitely. Jennifer's internship with the DA's office was different than that of most other interns, correct?
I don't understand what you mean by the question.
Well, within the first week of her being there, she was called into Jim Wright's office, the DA's office, isn't that correct?
Yes.
In that meeting, she was told she would have to limit her involvement in politics, correct?
She was told that she had to limit her social media.
And her social media was politically oriented, wasn't it?
Yes.
So it's fair to say that she was told to limit her
I would
involvement.
object, Your Honor, unless she was personally there and was a part of that conversation of that meeting. If she's testifying to things that she heard, I would object to hearsay.
She was there, Your Honor.
I was present in the meeting with her.
So basically, she was told not to make any political social media posts, correct?
Correct.
And by not speaking out at Board of Commissioner meetings, she was asked not to do that, correct?
I don't know that she was specifically asked
You
not
don't
to
remember?
speak out at those meetings.
Do you not remember, or do you recall?
I don't
differently?
remember that specifically. I remember that she had sent a personal message in a group in which either Mr. Wright was a part of or someone that he knows was a part of, that was a political in nature, that he disapproved of.
And she was summoned, this was the first time that you had an intern to be summoned to the DA's office in their first week.
I'm not going to, first of all, say it's the first week, but it's the first time that I've ever had an intern summoned in reference to a discipline issue.
And you and Jennifer shared her concerns about the social media policy, didn't you?
Yes,
Because it restricted her speech, is that not correct?
yes,
And during Jennifer's time at the DA's office, she was called back to Mr. Wright's office once again, wasn't she? A second time.
I don't remember her being called back a second time.
Okay. You don't remember him being upset about a social media post that she had posted?
She wasn't in our office then. As far as I can recall, the second post was at the end of her internship. She and I talked about her not returning back to the office, but I don't recall him calling her in again.
She was critical of the district attorney, was she not?
I don't think she was critical specifically of the office. I think she was critical of the policy.
And she was critical of Mr. Wright. She said she wouldn't vote for him. Isn't that correct?
Oh, well, she may have said that. She may have said that.
Were you aware that Jennifer had actually met with Darius Patillo, Mr. Wright's opponent in the case?
I don't know if she told me that or not.
Now, your daughter was permitted to spend unsupervised time with Jennifer, correct?
Yes,
And your daughter indicated she enjoyed her time with Jennifer,
yes,
and you were pleased as a mother that she was receiving some attention from somebody else?
I was pleased that that she felt comfortable, that my daughter felt comfortable enough with Jennifer, yes.
She participated in organizing the birthday party for Millie. Did you go to that party?
No,
But she did, didn't she?
yes,
With regards to the application process, she had to pass a fingerprint background check, didn't she?
yes,
And you talked about seeing Layla or Millie. Are you sure which daughter it is that you saw with a bruise on her face?
yes.
And which one was that?
I'm sure that's the older child. If Millie is the older child, then I'm sure that that's the child.
Okay. Could you in fact be mistaken and it was Layla, the alleged deceased child?
No, because Layla wasn't playing, if I recall. Millie was the one that was able to go and play. Layla was sitting in the chair with us while we talked.
Did you notice any bruising or cuts on her?
No,
Did Millie say anything to you about having a bruise on her face?
no,
Did she complain about Jennifer at all?
no.
You had even considered recommending Jennifer for the board of directors for defects, correct?
Yes,
And Jennifer had told you that there were times when she had picked up the children from the Lamberts and the Browns when there were little cuts and scratches and bruises on the children, correct?
yes. From who? From
Miss Lambert or Miss Brown,
are they the
foster parents.
Oh, No. No, Jennifer talked to me about there being some bruises or cuts, but it was my understanding it was maybe either the mom or the parent, grandparent, or someone had seen. I got the impression that it was one of those people who had seen the children and they were returned to foster parents in that condition. But I know that I did speak with her about, if that's happening, are you reporting it to the Department of Family and Children's Services every single time if something like that is happening?
Do you recall talking with an investigator by the name of Ann Tanner?
Yes.
And do you recall telling her that Jennifer and you discussed the fact that the children had bruises when they were picked up from the Lamberts and the Browns?
I don't think in the context of it was from the foster parents, but it may have been, but the whole conversation was not about them occurring, as I feel as if it's being suggested with the Browns or the Lamberts. It was occurring when they've gone off to visit with other family members.
But when she picked them up from the Lamberts
I understand, yes.
and the Browns, they would have marks regardless of where they got them from, correct? You talked about that.
Yes.
Now, you said you saw this bruise on Millie's face. Did you report it to anyone?
No.
Did you email Defects?
No, I didn't.
Did you call Defects?
No.
Did you call the police?
No, I didn't.
So you didn't do anything about it, did you?
No.
You have, since there's been an investigation of Jennifer Rosenbaum's time in your office, and isn't it true that you've told Defects, Ms. Hicks-King, that Ms. Rosenbaum, carrying the load she did not appear stressed at all?
I don't think she appeared to me, she appeared as a new person, a new parent who can become frustrated, overwhelmed because they have a lot to do. Jennifer had a lot of things that she was doing, but I didn't think it was so. She didn't just give me the impression that she was frantic about it, I guess.
Let me ask that question again and make sure. Did you report to Ms. Hicks-King during the investigation that Ms. Rosenbaum, carrying the load she did not appear stressed?
The words you're using, I don't remember those words. I will tell you today that I would have said that she, based on what I saw, she didn't seem any different from any new mother who had just gotten 2 kids, who was in school and trying to work. I mean, she didn't.
So you're saying you don't recall saying she did not appear stressed?
I don't recall saying that specifically, no.
And the fact that you wrote this email, did that cause you any problem at the office?
After the death of the child,
Yes.
it was concerning, but other than speaking with the prosecutor, the DA at the time, and no, it didn't cause any changes.
It didn't cause any problem with you?
No.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have at this time.
Just a few follow-up questions. Ms. Evans-Battle, did Jennifer tell you that when she got the kids, I want to make sure I had this right, when she received the kids from the foster parents, they came back with bruises on them?
Yes, she told me that, but she told me in the context, she wasn't saying it as if the foster parents were harming the kids.
Okay.
And I feel like that is what is trying to be portrayed. She was saying that it was someone else, like the parents or grandparents, whoever else was supervised or whoever else was visiting children were maybe doing some harm to the children. And when she got them from the foster parents, that they had those marks or bruises. What I said to Jennifer is make sure that you are notifying the Department of Family and Children's Service, your case manager, that you're taking photographs so that you are not blamed for those types of things.
So did she ever tell you that Ms. Lambert expressed to Jennifer herself concerns about the children being returned to Ms. Lambert with bruises and marks on them when they were in the care of herself and Joseph Rosenbaum?
No.
Did she ever tell
Jennifer
you that?
didn't tell me that.
I'm sorry.
Jennifer did not tell me that.
Did anyone ever tell you that?
Miss Lambert,
Okay.
I believe that is, Miss Lambert is the last person to, my question is Miss Lambert the person who had Millie after this happened?
Yes.
Okay.
So you had conversations with Ms. Lambert about
Yes.
bruises and injuries
Yes.
to the children while they were in the care of the
Yes.
Rosenbaums. And what was that conversation about?
Miss Lambert and I go to the same church. So she just said that she had reported to the department that the children were coming back with bruises and marks on them.
Did Jennifer ever tell you that she had indicated to Ms. Lambert during those conversations about concerns about bruising that defects shouldn't give me a child and not expect him to come back with bruises?
No.
Did Jennifer tell you when she presumably got the kids and they had bruises from the family members that she called defects about that?
No.
That she called the police?
No.
And when you saw that bruise on Millie's face, and are you certain it was Millie?
If she's the older child,
Yes.
yes.
Who told you she fell down the stairs?
Jennifer did.
Where was Millie when Jennifer told you that she fell down the stairs?
She was standing there.
And Ms. Mull asked you about these political posts that defendant Jennifer Rosenbaum was making. And there was more than just one occasion about her making what I guess DA Wright felt was inappropriate posts.
Yes.
Did she continue to post?
I don't recall that she continued to post. She was posting. He had the conversation. She stopped posting. The next time she posted, she was leaving the office.
And when you say she was leaving the office, tell me about how that occurred.
She posted, and I want to say I called her and said, and I don't think she came into the office after the post. And I believe I called her and said, Jennifer, you can't, I saw the post, you can't do that. And she said she wasn't coming back into the office anyway, so it didn't matter.
Was that the first time that you learned that she wasn't planning on coming back into the office?
Yes.
Now, myself nor Eddie Chase or Myrna Andrews, we are not employed by the Henry County DA's office, are we?
No.
Do you know what the process of a recusal is?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, if the department or if anyone find that they have a conflict of interest in the case, then they are to recuse themselves, which remove themselves from the case so that there's no indication or of anything improper going on. So there's no indicia of propriety.
And did Henry County District Attorney's Office recuse themselves from the case involving Jennifer and Joseph Rosenbaum?
At this time, yes.
Do you know when that recusal occurred?
When?
Yes.
I believe early on when Mr. Patillo took office. This was, yes.
And once a DA's office is recused from a case, what part do they play in any decisions about how that case will be handled?
Oh, none.
Thank you, nothing further.
So you have spoken to Ms. Lambert since this case. came to the forefront?
I spoke with Miss Lambert right after. I'm not sure whether or not she had been arrested, but I want to say it was in the early part of December of 2015.
Did she tell you that Millie had said to her that Joseph had hit her on the back? Did she tell you that?
I don't remember.
In
That.
fact, she didn't tell you that, did she?
I don't think we talked any specific. I wouldn't have talked with her any specific because that was just a statement that she made, and I kind of scurry away.
But you did discuss with her what you talked about on direct.
Yes.
So you did talk to Miss Lambert,
Yes.
and she never mentioned to you that Millie had told her Joseph was pounding on her back.
Not that I can recall.
And she didn't tell you that she believed Jennifer was drinking and was hauling the child up by the arm up the stairs, did she?
No.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Anything else?
Nothing further from the state.
Thank you, Ms. You can step down. Any objections for this being excused?
None from the state.
Okay. This is time for us to take our morning break. We're going to take a 15-minute break, and then we'll resume. Thank you.